story was actually inspired by a real news story that happened about 3 years ago in a London park. And it's the story that most obviously gives the book its title. The story, it literally is a bird eating a bird. And the story is called Lunch Hour. The pelican took its time swallowing the pigeon, keeping its morsel of prey in the sack of its bill for almost half an hour. At first, it held its beak ajar. The gap was wide enough for the smaller bird to escape, but the pigeon just sat there, stupefied, head jerking around occasionally. Perhaps it thought itself lucky to have landed in a cool cave and was admiring the grooved interior whilst enjoying a reprieve from the midday heat on this, the hottest October day on record. It was the one chance of escape the pigeon would be given. After a couple of minutes, the pelican's bill shut tight. Only then did the doomed bird realize it was somewhere it didn't want to be. A few seconds too late, its survival instincts kicked in. It flapped and fluttered frenetically. Onlookers were horrified. "Oh, God, it's just horrible," said one woman. She continued gawking as she took a bite of her chicken and sweet corn sandwich triangle, part of a Marks and Spencer's variety trio. She'd already dispensed with the Wensleydale and carrot and was saving the prawn cocktail with shredded butter lettuce for afters. "How on earth did it happen?" said another, popping open a bag of salt and vinegar discos. "It just sort of snapped it up, didn't it, Lorraine? Sort of scooped and snapped it up." "Yeah, bloody hell, it's disgusting," said Lorraine. "But England doesn't have pelicans," said an American tourist. "Does it?" "Well, it would seem that it does, rather," said a man with a classic Oxbridge accent. "Yeah, but wild ones," said the American. "I mean, come on, what is this, London, Florida? It must have escaped from the zoo, don't you think?" "Yes," said a young woman with long hair, bare feet, and a beatific smile. "Isn't it great? That poor pelican spent her whole life in prison, and at last she's found freedom. This is now her home. I think it's wonderful." "But what about the pigeon?" said a young guy in a vintage suit. "What pigeon?" said the barefoot young woman. "Oh, blimey," cried another office worker. "It's really trying to get out now." There was a hush as the crowd turned its full attention to the impromptu show. The pelican's bill had begun to quiver and spasm as the pigeon within struck against the walls of its living coffin. The pelican's eyes betrayed no emotion and its bill remained closed. A man of about 45 with the weathered skin, red cheeks and crusty, capable hands of a farmer nodded in the direction of the long-haired, barefoot young woman who was no longer smiling. "It is wonderful, isn't it?" he said, with a northern accent and a wink. "Nature in action. Aye, I'd say it's a privilege to be able to witness something like that. A natural wonder." "Oh, really?" The young woman's golden brown eyes glistened. "First they turf those poor little birds out of Trafalgar Square, and now they're feeding them alive to escaped exotic zoo animals. How exactly is that a natural wonder?" The weather-beaten Yorkshireman didn't respond other than to wink at her again. "Anyway," she said to everyone but him, recovering her gentle certainty, "karmic retribution will act. It'll be reborn as a pelican predator." "Like what?" said an awestruck girl of about 12 in a customised school uniform. She wore her tie on her head like a bandana. "Like a whale?" "Maybe a whale," said the young woman indulgently. "Or maybe a queen. Or a king, depending on how long its path of destiny takes to unfold." "What the hell is she going on about?" said Lorraine's friend, finishing her bag of discos, then blowing it up and popping it with a quick slam of her hands. "Buggered if I know," said Lorraine. "Only the queen is allowed to hunt and eat the swans in her parks," explained the barefoot woman, as if to very small children or retarded adults. "Jesus, is that true?" said Lorraine. "That's disgusting." "But that's not a swan, is it?" said Lorraine's friend. "No, but our ruling monarch can kill and eat any living thing she finds in one of her parks, any time she wants. It's the law." "Bloody hell," said Lorraine. "Any living thing? Because then that would include us, wouldn't it?" By way of a response, the long-haired woman smiled serenely. "Fuck me," said Lorraine. "Whoa, I'm having a total deja vu," said a boy in his late teens. Wicked, mate, said a bicycle courier who presumably wasn't on a rush delivery. I knew you were going to say that, said the teenage boy. I've seen this happen before, said a brisk old lady in a dark trouser suit. A red felt poppy was pinned to her left lapel, even though Remembrance Day was more than 3 weeks away. And that, said the teenager, I totally knew she was going to say that. Birds were a little different, continued the old lady. Big one was browner, small one more of a dove. Just trying to work out if it was the summer of 57 or 58. I thought pelicans only liked fish, said a middle-aged woman, her voice rising almost to a wail. It's so unnatural. Surely they should only eat fish. Well, said a man with a shaved head and sardonic delivery, maybe it's true that pigeons are the fish of the city. The other white meat, suggested another lunchtime comedian. Anyone got a match, said a ruddy city gent who staggered into the centre of the park with a pint of real ale and a cigar. I think I might have swallowed my lighter. Still having a deja vu, mate? Career asked the teenage boy. No, he said quietly. A few people took photos and videos with their mobile phones, but one guy had what looked like a professional camera. The next day it would be revealed that he was a press association photographer when one of his shots appeared in every national newspaper in Britain and all over the internet, alongside a little article describing the unusual spectacle. A staff researcher at the news agency uncovered some obscure facts, such as that there are 5 pelicans currently living on Duck Island in St James Park Lake, 4 eastern whites, this was one of those, and 1 Louisiana brown, and that they and their ancestors have dwelled there longer than most Londoners, having been introduced as a gift from the Russian ambassador to King Charles II in 1664. And while a spokesperson for the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds confirmed that pelicans are supposed to eat only fish, it apparently wasn't the first time a St James Park pelican had fancied a bit of fowl. One of them had shocked passers-by a few years back when it had dined on a duck. The convulsing bill of the pelican was mesmerising. By now the large white bird had travelled to the edge of the pond with its views of Buckingham Palace to the west and the giant wheel of London Eye to the east. The pelican stood in profile, next to a battered sign which read, "Do not feed the pelicans." Its pale pink bill was illuminated by the bright sunshine and glittering water, causing it to become almost translucent, thus accentuating the thrashing silhouette of the trapped pigeon. It was hard not to identify with the riding dark shadow. The pelican appeared unmoved. It stood calmly on one leg. After a while, it switched to the other leg. "Oh, Christ," said a tearful blonde Australian backpacker. "What's up, love?" said her boyfriend, trying to put a comforting arm around her, but finding it impossible to reach around her huge purple rucksack. "Oh, it's just that I can't stop thinking about Steve Irwin, the crazy bastard. I miss him so much." A tip of the pigeon's wings suddenly emerged, the feathers splayed like dark grey fingers. Some people winced, others leaned forward, stood on tiptoes or held their breath, buoyed by faint hope. "Oh, hurry up and put it out of its misery," said a woman with sunburned shoulders, taking a drag of her silk-cut cigarette. "Yes, what the bollocks is it waiting for?" said another. "Condiments," said a young man, sniggering at his own joke. Nobody else laughed. As if it had understood them, the pelican turned and at last faced its audience. Then, as if preparing to laugh raucously, it tipped its head back and tossed its closed bill rapidly and repeatedly until the still struggling pigeon left its hellish holding sack and was forced headfirst into the gullet of the larger bird. A few people shuddered and gasped. A little girl screamed and was dragged away by her very pregnant mother. Then all was quiet. Water trickled from the top of the ornate Victorian fountain. At the lake's edge, in the shade of a weeping willow, which stirred slightly in the humid breeze, 2 mallards dozed, heads tucked into their plumage. A woman of about 30 turned to her clutch of colleagues who gathered, as was their wont, for a pleasant picnic lunch, happily taking advantage of England's remarkably warm autumn with sandwiches, crisps, and iced frappuccinos in the park. "Well," she said, slurping the last of her salmon-coloured drink through a fat white straw, "I suppose that's that then." Thank you.